We are in chapter 14 about the Enlightenment and Revolution, and recently we are learning about the Age of Reason. And the lesson before this is about the Enlightenment, and we covered about the ideas that challenge established authorities. The Enlightenment thinking is a combination of Renaissance, Reformation, and scientific revolution. So, just to give you a recap, the Renaissance is essentially the product of the revival of ancient Greek and Roman thinking. And the Reformation is the time when people like Martin Luther challenged the authority of the church. And the scientific revolution is the time when new ideas in science put more methods and objectivity in terms of thinking and organizing the approach in learning or seeking about scientific truth. Now, the Enlightenment thinking is the time when individuals actually challenge the government on how to govern the people and how to protect individual human rights. Now, have your books ready or go to Loda.usd website and from there to Clever and from Clever to Cengage Learning and log in your student account and your password. From the left side, Unit 5, Chapter 14, Section 1, The Age of Reason, Lesson 2, Enlightenment Thinkers, and that is in pages 384 to 385. Now, this chapter's essential question is how the new ways of thinking about government and human rights led to revolution. And the objective of this lesson is to identify important Enlightenment thinkers and compare their ideas. So we are talking about influential people, influencers, if you may. So this section is just divided into two. We have this what we call political thinkers and social thinkers. The political thinkers are the ones whose primary concern is about the government itself. And social thinkers, these are individuals whose focus is more on human rights, individual rights. The main idea of this lesson is how Enlightenment ideas gave people a greater voice in government and society. Now let's jump into these influencers. The first one is John Locke. He published 2 treatises of government. So Locke asserted that humans were born free and equal with natural rights, including life, liberty, and property. He claimed that a leader could rule only with the consent of the people. Now that is very important, consent. In other words, the power of the government is only given to it by the people it governs, or by the people in general. So Locke proposed the idea of a contract or an agreement between rulers and ruled with clearly defined rights and responsibility for each. People he believed had the right to overthrow rulers who broke this contract. The idea would prove hugely influential in North America, France, and Latin America. A good example of this social contract is between the British Empire and the 13 colonies. They believed that the British Empire through King George violated so many natural rights. And because of this, the Founding Fathers, declared this what we call the Declaration of Independence. In this Declaration of Independence, they stated that they are breaking the agreement, the contract between the British Empire and the 13 colonies, which eventually led to a revolution and, of course, the formation of the United States of America. Another great influential thinker is the Frenchman Baron de Montesquieu. So he believed that liberty was a natural right, just like John Locke. So in 1748, he expressed his opposition to rule by a single all-powerful individual. And who is that? That's the king, or sometimes the queen. Instead, he proposed the separation of government powers into 3 branches: legislative, judicial, and executive. So the idea is that this separation of power or branches will limit government power and preserve individual freedom. For example, in our government, the United States government, it is divided to these three branches. The head of the executive branch is the president, as voted by the people through the electoral college. And then the head of the judicial branch are the Supreme Court justices, and these are appointed by the president and confirmed by the legislative branch, which is comprised by the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, that's a lot of idea to take at once, but the main idea that I want you to take from this philosopher, is this. In order to avoid or prevent a single individual or even an office of the government from taking advantage of all the power and manipulating everyone, is to create these branches so that there will be this what we call checks and balances in the government. So in other words, whenever one branch is becoming so strong, the other two will limit its power. So that is the idea behind this, to create this balance, to create this harmony in the government so that nobody will abuse the power that is given to them by the people. For sure, this is not the last time that you will encounter these concepts, these three branches of government, and definitely not the last time that you will hear about Baron de Montesquieu. Now let's talk about the social thinkers. Voltaire, a French writer, is outspoken about limiting the power of the church and encouraging tolerance of all religions. Now you have to understand, this is the time when kingdoms, governments, they have this what we call state religions. In other words, if a person belongs to a religion that is not of the state religion, most likely that person will get in trouble. And when I say trouble, it means, go to jail trouble or probably be executed, your properties taken away from you, and your families and relatives will experience the same hardship. So Voltaire, I think in our time today, this is just common sense. But during this time, you have to understand that people are not experiencing this kind of freedom. That's why for people like them to be outspoken, it takes a lot of courage, because just to speak your mind, you can be executed for that. Well, in our time today, we have this what we call cancel culture. There are some personalities and individuals that are losing their jobs and their businesses because they said something that is, well, quote unquote, offensive to the feelings of other people. So Enlightenment thinkers are against this. They believe that as long as it's not vulgar, as long as it's not putting other people's lives in danger, then individuals should not be stopped or censored from expressing what they have in mind. Again, this is not an absolute freedom. There should be limitation to the things that people can say, especially if it will endanger others. Moving on, another influential thinker is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So he believed that all people are born free and good. So his idea, just like Locke, there's this what we call social contract. He proposed a social contract between individuals and the society in which they live. So in this contract, individuals would agree to work toward the good of the country rather than pursuing only their personal interest. In other words, it is thinking not of what your country can do for you, not what your government can do for you, but what you can do for your country. In other words, it's a mutual understanding, or even better, an agreement. So as the people supports its government, the government's responsibility is to protect individual rights and the welfare of the majority. Women played an important role in the development of Enlightenment thinking. So they organized salons where philosophers, thinkers, and writers share and criticize ideas, and eventually they spread this through this social gathering. But there are very few individuals who specifically fought for the equal rights of women. For example, Mary Wollstonecraft, she is an English writer and thinker, and she published this Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Wollstonecraft argued that because women have the ability to reason and they deserve equal rights to men. Of course, there are also Enlightenment thinkers in the field of economics, and economics is the distribution of wealth and resources in the society. An enlightened Scottish economist by the name Adam Smith described a freer economy called laissez-faire. And what is laissez-faire? It's a French word for leave it alone. So he argued for a system of free enterprise or a market economy. In this system, people selling and buying products in markets would determine what products were needed and what price should be paid for them. Now, you may not realize this, but this is very important. Imagine if the government dictates businesses or the people in general what kind of products will be available in our shopping malls or supermarkets. So you will not have that much choice. If the government wants you to buy a specific brand of shoes, even if you don't like that, then you don't have a choice but to buy that product because that's the only thing, that's the only product, that's the only brand that is available. So that is, I think I'm just minimizing, the negative effects of not having a free market. Now, you may not see the importance of this as of this moment, but imagine if an organization, for example, the government dictates not only the choices that are available in our market, but also the prices. Then that will be a big problem for the majority of us. In other words, it's better to have a choice. If you think that one supermarket or one store sells an item that is too expensive for you, then you can move to the next one. And if another store or a supermarket sells something that is not the type of quality that you're looking for, then you can move to the next one and on and on. That is a free enterprise. And you may not see the significance or importance of that, but actually that's one of the very few things that makes countries like the United States of America a great place to live because of this free enterprise or market economy. To summarize, these are the 4 of the 6 or 7 Enlightenment thinkers that I mentioned a while ago. The first one, Voltaire. He's outspoken social reformer and defender of the civil liberties. He proposed religious tolerance and limiting the power of the Catholic Church. We also have Baron de Montesquieu. He believed that the power of the government should be limited. He advocated for the separation of government powers. These are the 3 branches, the legislative, judicial, and executive branch, which is in the United States government. We also have John Locke. He proposed the idea of a contract between the ruler and the ruled, the government and the people. He believed governments that failed to uphold their subjects' natural rights should be overthrown. He also believed that government power came only from the people. And finally, we have Wallstonecraft. She stated that women are rational human beings, argued that natural rights extend to women as well as men, insisted women deserve equal rights in education and society. Of course, there are still so many challenges that women faces today, but during her time, these rights that many women enjoy today are actually almost non-existent. For example, education and voting rights. Okay, now let's go to the review and assess questions. The first one, reading check. According to the philosophers, what right did the people have if rulers broke the social contract? What are the things that they can do? Number 2, compare and contrast. What ideas did the political and social thinkers have in common? What are the things that they are fighting for? What are the things that they are advocating for? And number 3, make inferences. How did Mary Wollstonecraft use reason to argue for women's equal rights? Now go ahead, go to our Google Classroom and open the review and assess assignment, and go to the second slide and answer those questions that I just read. Of course, fill up all the basic information, your last name, first name, class period, and date. And our key vocab is laissez-faire. Don't forget the title of the lesson as well and your correct answers in the box on the right side. Write incomplete sentences and use your own words if you are aiming for the full credit. Of course, everybody should aim for that full credit. So that's our lesson for today. Section 1.2, Enlightenment Thinkers.